Hi, welcome to Full Beam Photography. My name is Peter Rush, and today we're going to be going through portrait editing. We're going to do a really easy edit, and we're going to use curves to do it. So let's just hop straight into Photoshop. So here we are with our photo that we're going to be editing today with curves. Now before we get to the curves, but there are a couple of things we want to do first. So for starters, as always, we're going to drag our background layer. We're going to bring it right down here to the bottom and make a duplicate layer. And then we're going to switch off our background layer. Now, as always, we do this so as if we make a mistake with all of the editing we do, we can just delete everything and come back to it and switch on our background layer and start again without having to go into our files and start loading things up. It just makes things easier and quicker if we want to go back and do stuff from the beginning as such. So, here we go. First thing we're going to do, we're going to make a plan. So, I'm going to call this plan layer. There we go. And we're going to get our brush. And we're going to make it a little bit smaller by using the open brackets key. Bring it down a little bit. And pick a different color. Something brighter and obnoxious so we can see it. And we're going to plan what we want to do. So I'm going to zoom in here. So I'm going to hold down the Z key. I'm going to keep my finger on it. Zoom in. Zoom in a little bit closer. That's about it. And if I take my finger off, I automatically go back to the brush tool. So let's have a look and see what we're going to do. So we've got a stray hair here. There's a stray hair here as well. See, we have one up here as well. It's not too obvious, but I want to get rid of that. Now, also, here we can see in the skin tone, it's a bit red in certain areas, and it's not even across. So I'm going to just circle the nose to let me know that's what I want to do there, and we'll come back to that later. Also want to just lighten up the shadow here under his eyes so he doesn't look quite like he has so much bags. Because this photo was actually taken while we were setting up the lights. And I just liked it so much because he had his phone in his hand that I wanted to keep it and play with it. Also, what else do we want to have a look at here? Let's see. I want to clean up this line here on his beard just so it's a really nice clean line. And let's see what else. I want to play with this here because I quite like to bring up a highlight so it kind of goes straight across his face here. It's a nice line. I'll get rid of that bit there though. There we go. Bring up my flow and my eraser. And the eraser tool, just in case you don't know guys, is just the E key on your keyboard. Okay, let's see, where else? Is there anything else I'd like to do there? Not a huge amount. I just have to also remember to highlight this area. And I want to make sure I get the skin here on his finger to match up here. Let's see, anything else? Well, I have a stray hair here as well, but I'm going to take care of that with curves. That's a curves. And I'm actually quite happy. There's nothing else I really need to change there. I know it looks very messy and like I've got a lot of things, but it's really not. So, for starters, what we're going to do is we're going to remove these little whiskers here. So I'm going to turn off the planning layer so I can see what I'm at. I'm going to press Z, so I have my zoom tool and I'm going to zoom in. And for this, I'm going to new layer on top of the planning layer. And I think I'm going to use the heal tool here actually. So the trick with the heal tool is to pick the area you want to copy over this, and it will meld it together reasonably nicely if it's not on a hard edge. If you go too close to an hard edge like this, it'll leave you with a really distorted. In fact, I'll show you what it'll look like if I do that. So I'm going to make the heal brush a little bit larger. Again, that's the close brackets key. I'm going to pick this area here and try and run it along here. And as you can see it there, and when you take your finger off, actually, that's done a really reasonable job. That's actually better than I was expecting it to come out. Sometimes you get this dark. Yeah, it does kind of darken, but here it's actually done a reasonable job. So I want to kind of do it here. And just along there. I don't want to go in too far. And you see it does a nice job. I think I could have picked a little bit of a better area. So I'm going to go and do that again. And to go back a step rather than undo, I'm going to press Alt, Control, and Z. If you're on an Apple, that's Command, Option, Z. And I'm going to pick it a little bit closer. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. And if I hold down the Alt key, I can pick where I want to pick it from. So I'm going to pick from about here. So it's kind of along this line. And there we go. That's a lot better. It kind of keeps that together. And I'm going to do the same here. And I'm going to hold down the Alt and select this area here. And there we go. And that worked quite lovely. Whilst I'm here, there is a little bit of a pimple here. So I'm going to kind of clean that up a little bit. There we go. Same here. Now do quite a bit of this just to clean up the nose and looks smooth. There we go. And there's a little dot here I want to get rid of as well. That's perfect. Yeah, no, I will get rid of that one as well. Now, normally I'm not going to get rid of this little scar here that Hassam has on his face, because that's who Hassam is. I'm not gonna, it's just pimples that, nothing that's permanent in pimples or spots I would get rid of, but scars or, beauty spots or things like that, I'm not going to get rid of. Because that's who a person is, and it would just be wrong to take that away from someone. So, back to zooming out, so if I hold down the Alt key whilst I got the zoom picked, and just tap, and that will zoom us out. And, yep, I'm actually going to come up here, because according to my plan, yes, I've got up here to do as well. So, I'm just going to zoom in, and with the heal tool still, so over here, and Alt, I'm going to select somewhere close to it, so about here, and then I'm going to just, there we go, and that's that. And no, I have no problem with the rest of those hairs. That's actually part of who Hassam is. That's a beauty spot there. Probably shouldn't say beauty spot, but it's about a man. But anyway, you know what? I've got a stray hair here as well, so I'm just going to pick that out and just close as I can, so the skin tone and direction of the skin is exactly the same. There we go. Alright, I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to label that heal, so as I know which layer that is, just in case later on I need to. I'm going to create a new layer for clone, and I'm just going to type that in now and call that clone. Oop. Let's type there, Pete. There we go. Clone. So, clone stamp is right here. There are a few to choose from, but I'm going to go with clone stamp. Again, I'm going to move down here. Now, I want to get a nice clean line across here, so I'm going to go just a little bit below. And again, like the heal tool, I'm just going to press Alt. And this is where I want it to copy from. And now it's going to copy this. And unlike the heal, it won't blend in. It will be a straight line. And you'll see what I mean now in a second. So if I just select here, and I go up here, and I'm taking the skin from below, so it should be roughly the same tone, because I kept it in an angle straight to it. Now, I'm going to do this a couple times. I'm not going to just stick with it. I'm going to pick here again. And you see some of the hair from here has come up, so I don't really want that. So I'm just going to take that out. And you see, because I went over here, it's not quite the same patch. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to Control, Alt, Z, Command, Option, Z, if you're on an Apple. Pick here. There we go. And I'm just going to move past that here, pick here. And there we go. And I'm just neaten that up a little bit. There we go. That looks quite good. Now I've got a stray hair because I copied from somewhere else, so I'm just going to kind of keep it there. There we go. Now we're just going to back out a little bit and see how that looks. There we go. Now, just to see the difference. On, off. On, off. Yep, I'm quite happy with that. I like it. I've got a bit of a, here we go, just a little bit of an edge there. And I'm just going to clean this up here. So again, just below where I want it, so I'm still in the same color of the skin and the same texture that's right with it. Just going to take that edge there. There we go. Better. And zooming out, again, Z to zoom, and to zoom out, hold down Z whilst on the zoom tool. And there we go. That's better. Right, and if we just want to see what it looked like before we did anything, if we hold down the Alt and go to the original picture at the bottom, it'll switch off all the other layers, so you can just see what it was originally, and after. Before, after. Wonderful. So I'm quite happy with the way that's gone so far. So, next thing I want to do is, I want to even out this skin. So you see we had picked this here, because it's red and it's not quite a nice overall single tone. Well, not a single tone, we want highlights, we want shadows, and we want midtones. We want them all to come from the same color palette. So, to do that, I'm going to create a new layer again, and I call this Skin Tone. And then I'm just going to get a brush. Now, I'm going to use a soft edge, no, I'm actually going to use a hard edge brush here, and this is one that comes with Photoshop. And so there's always one of these, and there's always a soft one, and I use these an awful lot. They're pretty much the main brush I use, the two of them. I'm also going to make my brush larger with the closed brackets. Just press that until it gets larger. There we go. Now, I want to use Hassam's actual skin tone, which means I have to find the mid-tone. Not the highlight, not the shadow, the mid-tone, because the mid-tone is usually our actual skin tone. Now, I'm going to actually do it down here because this is less affected by the light, because this is a lot of highlights and a lot of shadow. So, I'm going to pick around there. And that looks dark, but Hassam has a dark skin tone, so that's perfectly fine. And then we're just going to take, I'm going to up to 100%, and I'm just going to brush this in. And I know, it looks horrendous. I haven't blended, I haven't tried to use a soft tone brush or anything, I haven't taken my opacity down. That's fine for what we want to do here. Now, what I do want to do is bring my brush down a little bit smaller, so open bracket. I'm going to press in, and I'm going to fill in everywhere where the skin, and I'm not even going to go nicely at this, but that's alright, don't worry about that. An easy way of making this all fit in. Now, I do want to be careful along here, because this is a rim light that I've actually chosen to have, and it's added a blue tint to it, and I want to keep that. I don't want to change that. I want to actually keep that. So I'm going to kind of come to the edge of it, but I'm not going to go over it as best as I possibly can. If I do, that's not a problem. I'll deal with it later. I'm just going to fill it in. Now, I don't really want to come too close to the eyes, because I don't want this to interfere. Now, I know I have there, and I'll deal with that in a second. But let's just carry on and fill in the skin, all of it, because we want all of it to come from the same tonal base. Even down here in the beard, where you can see some of it. There we go. And the neck. All the skin that is visible has to be covered, so we get this nice, continuous, even tone. There we go. Not forgetting the finger down the bottom. There we go. Now the eyes, I've gone in a little bit, so I'm just getting my eraser tool. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. The eraser tool is E. Just there we go. A little bit there. Perfect. I know, that's horrible. But what we're going to do is we're going to change the blend mode on this. The blend mode menus are up here, and I'm going to go, well, we'll start with color. It's a little weird, isn't it? I know, don't worry, I'm going to pull it back a little bit. But as you can see, everything is now the same color. I'll be honest with you, it's a little brighter than I'd like for Hassam's skin tone, so I'm going to try hue. There we go, that's a lot better, and I can actually bring that back up a bit. And now you can see the highlights are actually filled in with the same color. Everything's around the tonal. The ears are a little less red. The nose is a lot less red. But you will see here, we have run over into the highlight here from the rim light. And that's easy. I'm just going to press, don't forget, when this box is blue up the top, you do have to press it down. There, it has made the choice. If you don't, it won't let you change anything. Just wait for you to do that, and sometimes you don't notice what it is. Now, I'm going to go to Eraser Tool, which is E, and I'm going to bring it up. Make sure I'm on a soft brush for this. I don't usually use a hard brush on my eraser because it leaves a nasty little line, whereas this one made a nice little soft one. I'm going to bring the flow down, not the opacity, to about 20%, and I'm just going to erase next step very slowly. I just move in a little bit until I'm happy with, there we go, a little bit here. There we go. Now, sometimes people don't go enough into the hairline, so you would end up with this weird color over here and over here. We do, because the skin is still under the hair as well, and so it needs to be covered as well with the same tonal pattern. Now, you will notice down here, though, in the beard, and slightly up here, I've colored in the black bits and it looks a bit weird. And I kind of covered over some of the detail here, so that's easily done by going into what's known as the style layer, by going and double-clicking on the layer, and this menu will come up. It's called the style layer, and we're going to deal with the if blend down the bottom. I highly recommend getting used to using the if blend. It is wonderful. It gets past so much things so much quicker than a lot of things. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to keep an eye on here. So this is a dark area, so we don't want it to apply to the dark areas, which is this end of the scale. Now if we move this, it's just you do weird, it kind of works here a little bit, but normally what you do is hold down Alt and take the first half of this arrow. We can see where it's split by this, and it will split, and you can control this a little bit more. So it doesn't go in, you don't necessarily take it out of all the shadows you want, but definitely out of these dark hairs. And play around with this a little bit more. And you'll also notice it'll come out of these grooves over here, and out of the eyebrows as well, which are black. And they go back to their original colours. I'm going to bring that back a little bit, because I wanted to apply a little bit more there. And that's, yeah, I'm happy with that. I'm just going to press OK. You'll also know this will come up when you've affected it with the style layer. So when you click into it, it'll come back up. It also just lets you know from a glance that there is a style put on there. Okay, I'm quite happy with that. I think that looks quite nice. So I think we'll get on to the actual editing by curves, guys. So to do that, we're going to go down to this button here to our menu, and we're going to just press on curves. And here's our curve menu comes up. And here's our layer. And you notice it also comes with a layer mask. The layer mask is on white. We will want it on black, but beforehand we want to see what we're doing. So, the curves layer, how does this work? Well, simply, if you click here and drag down, it gets darker, the picture. If you drag up, obviously, it gets lighter. And to reset it, we just press this button down here. So we're going to reset it. Now I'm going to make it dark first, because I want to deal with the skin tones here, and I want to make them all a little bit darker. So I'm going to bring it down. Yes, I know what you're saying, but I've affected the entire picture. That's fine, because we are going to go back to our style level. But before we do, we're going to press Ctrl-I and make that layer mask black so it goes away. So the black is covering it. So we want to just let it show where we want it to. So first of all, brush. Make sure we're on a soft brush. You use the one that comes with Photoshop. There we go. Nice soft brush. Make it a little bit larger. I'm going to bring the opacity here down to 20%. And there we go. And then I'm just going to draw white in where I want it. And you'll see on the layer mask it will appear here. And that white area will show through the darkness from the curves. So let me show you how that works. So we're just going to go right here. And you can see, there it is. It's just darkening it out a little bit there. Now I'm going to bring it over here into mid-tones. And anywhere where it's dark I want it to stand out, which is a bit here, just down one side of his nose. The opposite side from where the light was coming. Now I don't want to cover this highlight or a highlight over here, because if you cover that, you don't get to see the depth of an eye. You need the highlight and the shadow there for it to go and see it, and that's where it is. Makeup artists will do the same when it comes to female makeup and everything. So I'm just going to avoid that, and I'm just going to come down here where it is. There we go. I'm going to bring up this a little bit, because that shadow will come up a bit more. And a little bit here, again avoiding this area here. And I'm going to bring up the side here as well, because I want to create a more three-dimensional look on his face by giving it shadows and depth. There we go. A little bit more there, under the nose, along the ear there, even a little bit on this one. And I'm even going to bring it in a little under here as well. There we go. And a little bit on the finger. Okay, now I know, it doesn't look very good. But again, we're going to go into our style layer, double click on the layer, and up it comes. And this time we don't want it to appear on the lighter end of his face. So we go to this end of the scale. And again, we're going to press Alt, just drag this first half of the arrow and separate it. And you'll notice as I slowly go up, it starts to move out of some of the darker areas. So, and it just takes a bit of playing around to get it right. I'm going to then just lower the opacity slightly, which I can do here as well. It's the same opacity that's up there. And it just lets you. I can also change what's the blend mode up there is also the same blend mode that's here. Well, let's actually have a look at darkening that out a little bit. There we go, that's a little nicer. I can bring that back a little bit. I don't want to lose too much of his skin tone. I want the color, I don't want it to be too bright. And we're going to press OK. And we want to check to see how that works. Before, after. It's just a little bit more depth to his face. There we go. I'm going to bring that back a little bit more. Always try pulling whatever you do back a little bit just to make sure you haven't gone too far. And sometimes you need to pull back to see when you've gone too far. So we've done the shadows. We now want to do the highlights. So we're going to go back down here and bring up another curves layer. Except this time, instead of going down, we're going to go slightly up. Now, this is where I'd rather go darker more and lighter less on a curves layer, because the lighter has a lot more of an effect. So we're happy with that. I'm just going to close that window down, and again we're on a white layer mask, so Control-I, Command-I if you're on an Apple, and again brush on white, 40%, and we're just going to draw this in where we want it. So I kind of want to pick out his forehead here a little bit, and the nose. I kind of want to bring this side of his face up and a bit around here, especially these highlights here, and his cheek, and over here as well. Definitely, so I just kind of bring that out a little bit. There we go. I'm not going to go into the hair too much because I like the line. I am going to kind of do his ear this side because it's the side with the actual light coming down from this side here, and you can see it in his eyes. And I'm just going to on the ear there. I'm going to do this side because this is his skin as well. So I darkened one side, so I definitely want to come across this way. And I'm going to kind of go over the area where I did put it in, so I get that mid-tone from the shadow coming across, the light coming across, and we get this definite shadow mid-tone highlight. And I'm going to do a little bit on his finger here as well, bring some of that out as well. Now again, we've gone over certain areas that we don't want to brighten the darker ends. So again, style layer. This time, we don't want it to show where it's darker, which is this end. So press Alt, and I'm just going to drag that up, and you can see already the effect it's having there, especially on the neck. But you see I've got the whole thing, and you get this really odd line here because I've done the whole arrow. So, go this back, and click on the front part of the arrow with the Alt key down, and just drag. And you see it's having an effect, but it's not leaving that weird line we had earlier. I'm going to bring this up a little bit as well. And I want to keep it on this up here. You know what, I quite like that. I'm just going to move this over a little bit just to make sure this side is okay. And yep, quite happy with that. I'm going to actually just play with the blend modes a little bit. So I'm going to try lighten. Very little effect difference, in fact. Screen, now that's definitely an effect. So see how that works. We may play with that a little bit. That's going more towards a different kind of photo. I can pull that back a little bit. Actually, you know what? I quite like that. It's very chill-like. Let's see. We could try, overlay and soft light. We'll probably do something very weird here. That's not too bad. Let's bring it up. So, yeah, that was a bit weird, but if we bring it down and bring this up a little bit, less of an effect. Nope, I don't particularly like that one. And soft light, it really doesn't do much, to be honest with you. No. So I'm gonna go back with light. There we go. And leave it so it doesn't affect quite so much. But I definitely got lighter areas here. There we go. I quite like that. That looks quite cool. There we go. I'm going to bring that up and press OK. Yep, I quite like the way that's come up. So we can switch that on and off. There we go. So we get absolute definite highlights, but without losing too much of the color, because we've used the skin tone in there is still in the highlights. Now, we're going to press Shift, and we're going to press on Curves 1, and so they're both selected. You're going to press Control G or Command G if you're on an Apple, and we're going to group that together. And then we are going to press double click, and we're going to call this just skin. So that's just the skin done, and we can switch that on and off. And so it's kind of flat, less flat. It's given more dimension to his face. Right, so that's the skin, but we're going to do the hair now as well. So again, curves. And this time, I'm not really going to do a dark hair because it's quite dark already. All I want to do is bring out some of these highlights. So I'm going to bring it up. Let's see, that looks kind of about there. So I'm just going to close that. And again, Control Command I. Make sure I'm on brush, on white, and then I'm just going to paint in white on the layer mask to show through what it is I want. And you can see that the highlights in the hair are just coming out. And I'm just going to paint it where the highlights are. I'm not going to paint in the dark because there's no point. I don't want that, otherwise I lose all of these nice strands and it's showing up. And again, double click into our style layer. There we go, missed it the first time. I'm going to drag that over, and this time I don't want it to show through where it's dark. So I'm just going to press Alt, and I'm going to keep my finger and just drag it through a little bit. See, it is already just fine-tuning that. Bring that up a little bit. That's about as much as I'm going to do. I may actually try this with lighten. Not much of a difference. Screen. Okay, there we go. Screen works a little bit more. Brings it in more distinctly. There we go. I'm just going to press OK because I quite like that. It comes up. There's a nice shine to it is what we want. And you know what? I'm going to actually darken this line across here a little bit just to give it a bit more body on the bottom of these waves as such. So, curves again. Slightly darker this time. Not by much. That's more than enough, I think. Control Command I. Make sure on brush and on white still even though we're darkening. And I'm just going to bring around the edge here. There we go. Just a little bit there as well. Just darken that out a little bit. And as you can see, it just brings that hairline a little bit nicer together. And again, I'm going to press Shift, click on that layer, then it's Control or Command G. That groups together, and I can just click it on and off. There we go. And now the hair's got more body and style and shine to it. That's wonderful. Now I'm going to label that hair. Wonderful. We're almost there now. Now, next thing I want to do is I kind of want to deal with this color, because this is kind of, it goes with the eye. It's all how this picture flows for me. And again, same again, curves. And I'm going to start with lightening it this time. Now I'm going to bring this right up, and the reason being is because there's a lovely highlight here when you do. And I don't want as much of it. Now I know it's lightened everything else, but as usual we're going to play with the layer mask, so that's not going to bother it. So there we go. Close that down. Command or Control I to invert layer mask. Make sure you're always clicked on the layer mask itself when you do that, or God knows what will happen, depends on what layer you're on. Right, so, and white brush, and away we go. We're going to fill all of this in. Now I know this is lightening up the background here as well. Don't worry about that, because when we use the if blends, that will take care of that and tighten this all up. So I'm just going to, anyway, whether I think there's a highlight I like to pull out there on that one, and the same on this side. I'm kind of going to keep it to the top mainly. And there we go, just fill that in until we're happy. There as well. A little bit more there, and a little there. And then, yes, you guessed it, style layer. If I click on it properly, that is. There we go. Now, we do not want it to apply in the darker areas, so Alt, and just grab this side of the arrow, pull it in, and you can see there it's already coming in. So if you bring it a little bit more, bring the black up so as it just comes a little bit tighter. A little less there, I think. A little less there, so I keep some more of the highlight there. There we go. A little less, just so as it doesn't affect the background, is all I want there. Let's see, we'll play the blend mode soft light. No, that's just going to darken it, so we're going to try screen. Now, because I've gone screen, I can see that a bit more, but I quite like the way it's all come up, so I'm going to bring this layer up a little bit more. This one here, and I'm going to keep that there. Perfect. That's so much better. That stands out with a little bit more depth as well. And, as always, if I've done the lighter end, I'm going to do the darker as well. So, curves, a little darker. Because what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use this to also hide any of this and just take out the details so it's not distracting me or distracting the viewer to look at this line here is what I want, and the V shape that's here but not necessarily get distracted here. Almost like vignetting it in a slightly different way. So I'm going to darken it a little bit more. And there we go. That's perfect. So Command or Control I, but the layer mask, and I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger, so that's the close brackets. 20% on white, and here we go. There we go. I'm just going to paint that in there. And you can see in the layer mask as it's popping up where I'm going. I'm just going to do the inside edge of this color. A little bit up there. So you can see the blacks in that come out. And then I'm just going to, in the color, just take out some of this detail by just darkening it down. It's just less distracting that way. That's all. And again, I'm going to double click for a style layer. There we go. Bring it over here, and I don't want it to affect the lighter areas. Now, that's not really, I'm not going to go far enough where it's going to come out of this, but I am going to try and make sure I haven't covered any of these layers. And it doesn't look like I have too much, but we're going to make sure. And again, Alt, and grab, or Option if you're on an Apple, just grab the beginning of this, just bring it in a little bit more, bring it this side. That bit's come up a bit, so I'm going to bring it back a little bit and just dark. There we go. So it's a little less distracting. And let's try putting this on darken. Not a huge difference. Multiply might be a bit too much, so we'll bring that back. Bring it to there. That. Multiply or normal. Question. I'm going to leave it on normal. I don't want to cover too much of it, just enough to take out the detail. And again, I'm just going to hold Shift, press on the lower, then it's Command or Control G to make it into a group. I'm going to name that color. And if we want to see what it was like beforehand, here we go. Before, after, before, after. I think that's really, really quite cool. Just to see how we're getting on with the overall picture, if we, again, press Alt and click on the icon over this one, it'll close all of these off so we can see the original. That's what it did look like. A bit flat, a lot more depth. Granted, very stylized, but it is definitely standing out more. The hair does, the skin, the color. We're getting more of a picture here. Okay, so next thing we need to do is I'm just going to do a little bit more on this phone, just so it stands out as well, because kind of why I like this portrait is it's very much a true portrait. we all have a phone, we're all using it. I almost think every portrait this day and age can come with our phone in it. Anyway, so I'm just going to bring, yes, another curves layer. I'm getting predictable, I know, but it does work, guys. Bring that down a little bit lower. Again, Command or Control I. Take the brush, I'm going to make that a little bit slower, and that's the open brackets. And I'm just going to do the top bit here. I want that to be a bit more definable and black, to be honest with you. And there we go. And now I'm going to go in a style layer, just to make sure I don't cover those white bits there. Oop, I seem to have missed it. Let me see. There we go. There it is. And so that means I want to take it out of the lighter end, because I just want to take it out of that or any of the highlight there I missed. So, Alt, and just bring the beginning of this arrow through. And you can see there's a little line there where I did, so I'm going to bring it a little bit further. There we go. A little bit more, and that cleans it up just a little bit. There it is. Perfect. And I press OK. I'm not going to really bother with giving it anything else. But, again, I've done the dark, so I must do the light. And I'm going to bring this up. That's it. Come to the light beat. Okay. And I've brightened everything up, so Control Command I, and I just want to bring up the apple symbol and maybe this highlight here. So I'll make my brush a little bit smaller, not a huge amount, and as always, white, just kind of fill in the apple a bit so as it stands out a little bit more against the other blue. I'm going to bring up that highlight a little bit. You can't really see it too much. Bring up that white there, and a little there. Okay, and you can't really, I've kind of got everything there, and because it's the same colour, it's a bit weird, so again, style layer will sort that out. With the if blend, in this case, we've gone light, and we don't want it to show on the darker. So, down here to the bottom, Alt, and separate these two. Now, this may have to go quite a bit, because they are the same colour, and it's only a matter of tone that's different behind them. And there we go, that's a little bit better. I'm going to bring that back. There we go, and this a little bit closer. Back and closer. And just kind of play around with this a little bit. There we go, perfect. And press OK. And so again, Shift, click on the lower one, Command G, and we're going to call this Phone. And now, instead of having, we can just click this one off the group to see the entire effect. And you see, it just stands out a bit more. The apple's a bit more brighter. This is a little darker, and so here we are. Now, almost finished. The only thing I want to do is I want to kind of make this hair stand out a little bit more from the background, because it's kind of blending in just a little bit. You can see if you really hard there is an edge there, but I want to kind of make that stand out a little bit more. That's fairly easy. I'm just kind of going to vignette it. Now again, we're dealing with a curves layer to do this, and I'm going to bring up the lightness just a touch. And there you go, you can see the edge, because when I did this photo, there was a slight light being cast on the back. Like, I kind of want it to stand out a bit more. Now, however, I have lightened everything, and I just don't like that. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first go and put a gradient on this. So over here, or press G, will give you the gradient tool. So there we go, gradient tool. And up here, we get a choice of which kind of gradient we want to do. Now, I'm just going to use the circular gradient at the moment. And as you can see, we're on white, but our layer mask has to go black first so as it doesn't show through. So Command or Alt I, and I'm going to use the gradient from the center of this picture. Now watch what happens on the layer mask when this does. You'll see how it actually affects how a gradient works. I just have to give that a second. There you go, so you've got this whole circle here. Now that's a little bit much, so I'm going to do that again. So I'm going to go backwards by holding Alt Control Z on an apple, that's Command Option Z. And I'm going to make that a little less. I don't want it to be quite so big, I just kind of want it to affect there a little bit. And that's a little too small. And back again we go, and I'm just going to kind of go to there really. And that's quite nice. There we go, it just stands out a little bit more, makes it a little bit. Now if I want it to stand out a little bit more than that, I can raise this up a little bit. What I'm actually doing is getting the forehead there, so that's not quite what I want. So I'm going to try something a little different, and I'm going to go to this layer mask. Now if I want to fill the layer mask black or white, it's Command Backspace for the background color, which would be this color here, or if it's the foreground, Alt Backspace will make it white. Or again, that's Command for the background color, or Option for the foreground color. So I'm going to go back to black. I'm going to get my brush out, make it a a little bit larger. What I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to brush in around it a little bit. A bigger brush, just so it's smoother. Just right around him, like it's a little halo basically. I'm going to bring it around here as well. Yeah, I prefer brushing that one in than using the gradient. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring the opacity of that down a little bit. And there we go. Yes, I quite like that. And so there we have it, guys. We have editing basically wood curves to give a bit of depth and 3 dimension to it. We call this dodging and burning, and I like to do it with curves because it works with the colors in the pictures. Some people use the dodge and burn tool over here, which works more on exposure, and I find that's more destructive to a picture because it blows out some of the detail. Some people will go do a similar thing to this with the style layers, but they'll use a black and white brushing. That doesn't actually darken a color, that adds black or white to the color, which isn't quite true. This is more true to who Hassan's skin tone is, and the same for other people. Okay guys, so we're nearly finished. We're just going to check out planning layer. We have everything. Oh, I haven't done under Hassan's eyes, so we'll just do that now. So I'm just going to go to the phone, and I'm going to go just below this curves layer for a new layer. I'm now going to get out what I call a retouching brush. Now I will include this in the description below so you can download it. See, it's a little bit funky. If I make it a little bit larger, you can see it's got some different edgings, which I won't explain in this one. I will do a tutorial if people want on how to make this brush and why to use it and what's the best way to use it. But it's the one I'm going to use for now, and you can download it in the description below. So, I'm going to pick it about this size. We're going to zoom in, so that's the Z key. And just click. And about there, so I don't want to go too far, and I want to see how I'm affecting the rest of the picture as I do this, otherwise you can do some really, really weird effects. So back to brush tool with B, and if I hold down the Alt key with the brush on, I get this eyedropper, which allows me to pick colors, a specific color, so I can go with the exact skin tone I want, and you can see it's having it's selected here as my foreground color. But I want to get pretty close, I don't want it to be too weird, I just want to take out some of this darkness here and here. So I'm going to pick right next to here. And I'm going to make sure my brush is at 20%, and I'm just going to gently tap along. I'm not going to keep click down, I'm just going to keep clicking slightly differently. And there we go. As you can see, that kind of blends in a little bit. It's not perfect, but that's alright, we'll take care of that in a second. And again, I'm going to pick close to where I am for color. I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. And I'm just going to brush that in there. Again, I'm going to pick a bit closer to here so as it's a little more natural looking colors. And there as well. And don't worry, I know I'm painting it over the detail, but we'll take care of that now in a second. So, I'm quite happy with that roughly, but I've taken out a lot of it and I don't want to lose the shape of Hassan's eyes. So I'm going to just go up to filter, to blur, and I'm going to go to Gaussian blur. And I'm going to blur that a little bit. How's that? A little bit more actually. I want more of the shape to come back in. There we go. There. Now, as you can see, I've kind of gone over the eye now that I've blurred it out. That's easily taken care of. I'm going to let that take effect. And I'm just going to get my eraser tool, make sure I'm on a soft edge. I'm going to make it slightly smaller, and I'm just going to make sure, there we go. Same on this side, just to make sure I haven't gone too much in. Just, there we go. And I'm just going to bring it back a little bit more. A little bit more again. There we go. So I've just softened it out slightly, not a huge amount, but enough to take away what looks like bags, and now I've just got the shape of his eyes. And there we go, folks. Remember to leave a like and sub if you haven't already. Don't forget to click on the notification icon as well so you don't miss any of our future videos. Also, feel free to leave a comment below and let us know what you want to see in our videos in the future.